Thank you for staying with us. The Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities has published the National Youth Policy aimed at promoting young South Africans over the next decade. The policy wants to introduce positive youth development outcomes for young people at local, provincial and national levels in South Africa. It also outlines a wide range of topics, including education, skills development and social support. Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, Professor Hlingiwe Mkhize, joins us now live. Professor, it's always good to speak to you. Good evening.
Good evening to the listeners. Good evening, Hugo.
Professor, take us through some of the objectives. I know I've skimmed a little bit on some of them, but take us through the primary objectives of this youth policy.
Yeah, you know, this, just to give a context, this National Youth Development Policy is a 2020 to 2030. Remember, we've had one at 2020, which ended in 2015. And so really looking at where we are, looking at challenges of unemployment and generally the plight of young people, it became important for the department to say, let's consult widely. Let's get from key stakeholders within the youth formations as to what should be the priorities when it comes to this policy now, which is going to coincide with the National Development Plan and the evaluation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's really about integrating the program of young people across government departments, civil society. The launch was a clear indication of the diverse nature of people who have contributed to the policy. I mean, we had the AU representative. We had a representative from the Commonwealth who also said it's aligned with their strategy and they hope to continue to contribute. Of course, our own Black Business Council young people also gave a perspective. The NYDA, our old agency, they also gave a clear contribution as to how they want to go get involved. Of course, it's education and creating awareness about possibilities, but also really these partnerships are crucial and critical. There is no way in which any one initiative can survive without coalitions and partnerships, especially when it comes to young people. Even if you look at our pillars, they call for even all of us to cooperate. And when we say we will develop the monitoring and evaluation tools, it basically means we will take the pillars as they are and then look at high-level indicators in partnership with relevant departments. For instance, the first one, which is popular amongst young people, is looking at quality education and, of course, looking at also at young people who are neither in school or in training and the vocational skills. And then also it looks at employment. Another pillar is at looking at employment, entrepreneurship and job creation, which in this country is a big opportunity as we reposition our economy. And of course, the other one, it looks at social cohesion. Young people, by their very nature, they are still exploring and really wanting to define the world in their own terms. So issues of social cohesion, they become very, very important because it gives them an opportunity to interrogate what they've inherited and to deconstruct and reconstruct the real world they aspire. And the other pillar, which is also appealing to many young people, is to look at youth physical and mental health. We all know that in a dynamic, changing world like ours, in democracy, young people get exposed to all sorts of
Professor,
sometimes we end
I'd
up.
like to throw in a question there while you're talking about young people and issues of mental health. When we received the crime stats, I know you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and one of the things that you said was a slap in the face was the issue of the incidence of gender-based violence in the 3 months from October to December 2020. Now, my question stems around the girl child, and obviously the fact that she is disadvantaged because of gender discrimination at a household and community level. How are you addressing these issues, obviously creating an environment for the girl child in particular to go out into the real world without these disadvantages?
Yeah, exactly. During the launch today, I remember we specifically mentioned the vulnerability of the girl child. We have always said, when it comes to gender equality, you need, boys and girls to fight the battle together. So one of the policies with this policy, we agreed that nobody should be left behind, whether a young person is growing up in rural areas in a specific cultural context. We even saw the district development model as an opportunity to create awareness and education about these vulnerabilities of girl children right up to rural communities. Because if we leave them outside without interrogating the cultural teachings, beliefs around patriarchy, then we leave too many people not benefiting from this policy. And of course, it starts with inequality, and ultimately it ends up with exposure to different forms of violence and people not being empowered to fight back or to take themselves out of the situation. So one of the things we're saying with this policy is that we really hope that as we initiate programs, top priorities within each pillar, we will be able to look at young people across all segments of society, whether you're growing up on the farms, in informal settlements, or in rural areas, whatever area that is still left behind, so that we begin to see the light, and say there's success, there's, this seems to be working in this area, and so on and so on. Because if we don't do that, you create this gloom where other young people, they grow up just thinking that I will never come out of this situation. And one of the things we spoke about with the youth, we had so many young people, even program directors were young, was that we need ambassadors, young people who will be ambassadors in different circumstances and communities, who will speak out and share what seems to be working for them and what is not working for them. And it is this militancy and vibrancy which with the launch of this, I think we all felt that spirit that, it's time to fight back. 10 years, now we're talking 9 years.
Professor, obviously for young people, they will go out there as enthusiastic as they can be with lots and lots of energy. But it's also about acceptance from the greater community, the places that you're going into to look for a job or to get some form of mentorship. Who are the partners that your department is working with to make all of this feasible?
Well, besides the UN agencies, who are often helpful in the sense that they bring to the fore experiences from all parts of the world under similar circumstances. But also in our context, we've realized through these consultations that there is virtually no community where young people are not organized. It's just that some are not known, some are not vocal enough, but the young people even when you go to the farms, there were young people who were beginning to talk about lack of assets, land ownership, and so on. So it's these ambassadors from all over the country whom we have to elevate their voices. But also, remember, we have said in this policy, the abundance of technology is it's a cross-cutting advantage for all the pillars, because what was impossible before people could be connected. I know the next question will be, but in rural areas, it's not everybody who is connected. But with the mobile phones, you know, in other countries, we've seen how young people, they use their mobile phones, not for phoning like a fixed line, but maybe for marketing certain goods, in some instances, for financial transactions, and many other things that are important for the success of this policy. So these are some of the things that, with our monitoring and evaluation tools, jointly approved by all the partners,
Professor,
the Black Business Council.
I'd like to put you a little bit on the spot and say to you, if you and I have this conversation in 3 months today, what movement can we expect for some of these programs that you're speaking of?
Well, certainly, for instance, when it comes to economic inclusion, employment opportunities, I think the timing to mobilize young people is really perfect, because remember, as a country, we are repositioning our economy, and there are all sorts of new opportunities that are meant to...
Professor, we've sadly run out of time for this interview. It's always good speaking to you, and I look forward to speaking to you certainly earlier than 3 months. Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, Klingwa Mkhize, thank you for joining us.